So, good morning and greetings from the gourd bed. I got inside to start editing this video of recounting what day 14 is looking like in the gourd bed, and I realized I didn't do an intro. So, I'm in my modern clothes, and this is the finished product. Ta-da! So, today on day 14, we're going to do some transplanting, which is this little guy, and checking on the status of everything, and do a little bit of watering. Oh my goodness, we have cucumbers. Or, no, gourds. Well, that's awesome. So I saw some signs of life, and because we had the mice eat the little seedling earlier, I had these little exclusion cages I made up to try to keep varmints, be they bird or mammal, out of the beds. And lo and behold, we have really good growth going on. There's one patch that was planted with the dibbler that's doing really well. The finger planted ones are doing well as well. And what's our soil temperature looking at? Our soil temperature is hanging out at 62. So put it in over here, and then we can, in a few minutes, do a comparison of soil temperatures. So yeah, we have gourd sign. This is awesome. Right, and so this patch here was the first one that popped up and was eaten by the mice. You can tell that it is not doing very well. But this patch back here is doing fantastic. This was planted with the dibbler, and on the side that had a little bit fresher, moister poo, which you do see a difference in this versus that patch over there, which was planted with the dibbler with less fresh poo. So anyway, with this one here, Gerard often mentions that the first seeds, when they emerge, the gourds emerge from the ground, they look like borage. And this here is a little borage seedling. And you can kind of tell that he was talking about those really broad dicot seedling leaves. And so the first leaves to emerge are cotyledons, which are kind of the seed leaves is another term for it. And then from there, they'll produce their true leaves. Yeah, so there's an example of what Gerard was talking about with the gourd leaves looking like borage leaves. So what I've been calling the medieval jiffy pot or peat pots are planting in old baskets and then transplanting them out in the ground. And so both Gerard and Thomas Hill mentions this, and Thomas writes, "If the owner would possess fruits timely and very soon, then, after the instructions of the Greek writers of husbandry, bestow in earthen pans or old baskets without bottoms, fine sifted earth intermingled with dung about the beginning of spring, in which the seeds set, sprinkle and moisten sundry time with water. After this, in the faire and sundry days, or when gentle shower falleth, set them abroad. But when the sun go down, bestow the baskets and the plants within the house again, and these like order so often, and water and when needed requireth, until all the frosts, tempests, and cold seasons be gone and past. And after this, as soon as opportunity and time will serve, and that a fair day be present, bestow all the baskets and pans of earth unto the brim, in well labored and dressed beds." And so then after a couple of weeks, this is what we get. So I planted these at the same time as we planted those. And through keeping them warmer, they definitely have much stronger growth, and they have their first true leaf and are starting to produce their second true leaf right there. So this is very common practice we do modernly with transplanting, although we use kind of those plastic pots or peat pots, which are the decomposable pots. And why we do that, especially with gourds and cucumbers, is that their roots really resent being transplanted. They don't like having their roots disturbed. And so planting that decomposable pot is way to lessen root stress. One thing I'm really enjoying with this basket methodology is that it is creating natural root pruning. And so root pruning, roots don't like to grow in air. And so you can air prune roots by just growing them in where they will touch air. And you can see these little white ones right there. They reach out and they sense the air and they're like, let's stop growing. And once we plant this into the soil, they will resume and have hopefully really strong root growth. This is a better technique than the plastic pots that the roots will start circling and get bound up. There can be a little bit more transplant shock. I'm going to be planting some that are grown in plastic pots at the same time to compare to see if this one in the basket has less transplant shock than the modernly grown ones. So that'll be fun. Alright, so originally I was going to plant this one here in the middle in between the four, but because this one here that was eaten by the mice is doing so poorly, I'm just going to pull those and plant it here. So, sorry little ones. The earth is nice and loose, and so I should, I'm just going to use my fingers to dig in here. Wonder if we'll hit horse poo. And so with this, we need it big enough, come here, and deep enough so that we can, there's the horse poo. We've struck poo. It's not really decomposing at all. That's interesting. I thought it would. And it's not warm at all either. So maybe I didn't have enough horse poo. Maybe it was too dry. I don't know. But, now it's starting to smell like horse poo. So, I've been taking this in and out every day, just as Thomas Hill describes, using this frying pan that kind of got beat up. Sorry, Elizabeth and Sarah. But otherwise, this is going to go in the ground now. Let's see what happens. So the ground below it is nice and loose, ready to have all these baby little roots grow into it. All right. And I'm going to plant that. Oh, it's a little deep. And let's see. Yeah, that's nice. And into the ground we go. Trying to make sure to get it all snuggled in there. So root soil contact is very important, again, because roots don't like growing into air. And I was really excited to see that Thomas Hill mentioned specifically burying the pot, because this is a key element if you are using disposable pots like Jiffy pots or cow pots that are made from cow poo. Because if you don't bury the basket fully, it creates a kind of a barrier, or it creates an area and allows the pot to dry out, and then your seeds are not going to be able to expand. Let me try that again. So you bury your pot fully, because if you don't, it creates an area where it can evaporate and dry out the pot, and that then the roots come up against a dry pot and they won't grow any further, and you're just going to get root-bound plants. But if you bury it, then that prevents that from happening, and these guys should grow nice and strong. So 4 in this one little area is a little tight, and so I'm going to select my smallest one and remove it. I'm sorry, dude. Right. And that's what the little seedling's looking like these days. Because I so abruptly pulls it from the soil, I can't transplant this back out. It's just going to have way too much transplant shock. So, and there we go. Our medieval Jiffy pot is planted. Dun, dun. And I will go grab some water and water this guy in, because it'd probably appreciate that. As all of these looking a little dry, they might like some water. Alright, and now for the watering in. I'm going to use my little watering pot I made a couple of years ago. It works by the power of a vacuum that you create with your thumb on top, and then they pour out the bottom. These holes are a little too big. I need to make some new ones, and we'll do once the ceramic studio is back open on campus. So you just put it into the bucket, close that hole on top, and lift it out, and with the suction, and then you release it, and it pours. Thomas Hill also writes about when you're watering, I think is it Hill or Gerard? Anyway, when you're watering, to use warm water that is not fresh from the well. Well water often is around 50 degrees, which is a little chilly for these guys. So keep your bucket of gourd water inside the house. There's also different watering techniques that we'll go into later about using cloths and to wick moisture out of pots and directly onto the gourds. All right. So there's our gourd bed all set up and ready for further adventure. Because I'm paranoid, I'm going to put the little exclusion cages back on. Although the newly planted one is a little large, and so I'm not going to cover that one up. But these, definitely. And I just realized I misspoke. The ones that were in the basket, those were started 2 weeks earlier than when I planted the ones in the ground. These ones are the ones that I planted at the same time as the ones here in the bed. And you can still tell though that there's a significant size increase from being grown inside, starting on a heating mat, and then grown underneath grow lights for about a week, and then the in and out process to start hardening them off. So their dicot leaves are much larger, and they already have a first leaf out. So these I'm going to plant in the bed just neighboring it, and then we can compare the two to see maybe if there's any transplant shock that goes on, or yeah, just to see what happens. Alright, and here's the bed where those modernly grown cucumbers are going to go. Soil temperature is hanging out at 58, so there is a slight, the soil in the covered bed with the horse dung is slightly warmer. I think that's more just a artifact of it being covered overnight than anything to do with the horse dung. So I'm going to use my trusty little mattock. Back over here. I want to strew chickens. Sing it loud. Alright. So again, we have 4 here. I'm going to take out the smallest one, and then very carefully, to try to avoid as much transplant shock as possible, pull it out. And you can see the difference here in the root pruning that was done in the basket versus here where the white roots are starting to kind of tangle up on the sides. So this is a good indicator that this is the perfect time to plant this, or maybe I should have planted yesterday, but they're going in the ground now. Because this is just a soil block and we don't have a decomposable pot around it, I don't have to worry about getting it in the ground as deep as maybe I would if I was using a decomposable pot. But I still want to nicely prepare the soil so those roots can jump out and start growing and doing its thing. Alright, here we go. snug that soil in all around. Tuck it in nice. And then go ahead and water it in again. And then repeat with the other one.